for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. Another Sunday stream here on Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. If you're watching this in playback, make sure you're hitting the like, that you're commenting, and that you're sharing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it. Even if you are watching because you don't like what I say, I love comments. I love feedback. Reasonable feedback. I mean, I don't want you to come in here and use a bunch of ad hominems and other logical fallacies to try and distract. But if you want to come in and you want to chat, you want to share your thoughts, your views, your opinions, want to tell me why I'm wrong, whatever the case might be, I'm perfectly fine with that. So before we get any further, make sure you're checking out the merch. If you haven't checked the merch out yet, got I love these beanies, by the way. Sold a few of them. Everybody's asking me for beanies, so got some beanies. They are for sale. If you're interested in my merchandise, you can email me at mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. Any of the merchandise, coffee especially. We've got a new batch brewing, got a new batch roasting. It's going to be shipped out here pretty soon. So if you're looking for coffee, let me know. And also keep in mind that I am doing another fundraiser. I just finished my fundraiser up for Dana Stevens, and her money will be going to her cause here pretty soon. But I've got another fundraiser started for my friends Bob and Sue Seifert. I know I say their last name wrong every single time I try to say it, but I'm dear friends, and their son Garrett is recovering from a very tragic incident out in Virginia back in the beginning of December. It's touch and go. Didn't know if he was going to make it. Looks like he's going to recover. We don't know what recovery is going to look like, but we're trying to get him back here to Minnesota to do the rest of his recovery. And so at the end of April, 15% of my sales and 15% of my income through YouTube, Rumble, and Subscribestar will be going to them. So if you have never been to my Subscribestar, it's right there, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment Podcast. I'd love for you guys to connect, pick a level of support. And if you don't want to do that, then you can hit the super thanks. Or if you're going to watch live, you can go ahead and watch live as you're watching live, you can send me a super chat or a super sticker, and a portion of that will go to me. And so anyway, I want to talk about some things that are in particular very pertinent to here in the state of Minnesota. Now, you're saying, well, why in the hell do I care what's happening in the state of Minnesota, TC? I'm not from Minnesota. Part of the reason why it's so important is ultimately because stuff that happens in any region, stuff that happens in any state is always directly impactful on other regions in a state, other states around a state, and even further out into the nation. And nowhere do we see that come more true than, or play out to be more true than what we see in the idea of taxes and taxation. And what is powerful in these situations is that political types, not the Polish people, but political types, these elected and even appointed public servants, all like to talk about what they're doing for their constituents, right? They make promises constantly. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that for you. And very rarely do they ever talk about the financial impact that it has unless they can try and pass off what decisions they're making as a financial boon to the people. And so recently I was made aware of an Olmsted County, Minnesota commissioner, Mark Fine, I think is how he says his last name. He's a local business owner. More, props to him. I love the entrepreneurial spirit of any person who wants to go out and start a business or build a business that was started before they took it over, whatever the case might be. I love the entrepreneurial spirit. I love capitalism. I am a dyed-in-the-wool anarcho-capitalist. I despise crony capitalism, which is what most of the people we see sitting in St. Paul here in Minnesota, or in whatever your capital of your state is, or in Washington D.C. I despise crony capitalism because crony capitalism is not really capitalism; it's just corporate Marxism, and it's where we bail out banks and bail out major corporations because they're just too big to fail. If they fail, we're all going to suffer, right? But I'm a dyed-in-the-wool anarcho-capitalist. I don't understand everything about anarcho-capitalism yet, but I'm getting there, and I'm planning on bringing some more people on to talk about that, especially under the Libertarian Lowdown series. But political types, elected and appointed servants, like to talk about how much. Um, Thanks, Commonwealth. Hey, TC, if it wasn't for you, I'd have no idea what was going on in Minnesota. You know what? If it wasn't for me, you probably wouldn't care what was going on in Minnesota. So, but this is an important topic, trust me. What we see from most political types is this push of look at what we're doing for you, look at what we're accomplishing, look at what we're giving you, look at what we're granting you, and look at it's only going to cost X. It's not going to cost you as much as you would think, right? Are you picking up what I'm putting down yet? It's always a promise of more, right? I'll point to the situation out here with in California. I was listening to an accounting of election day in California in 2022, and a person overheard a gentleman, I think it was in public transportation or something, say to an individual, he said, "Man, I just got my Newsom check." And these two hosts of the show refer to Newsom as King Gavin of California, and he got his Newsom check on election day. It's this promise, right? Here comes this promise of what I can give you. And people will vote for whoever promises them the most financial windfall from the state, whether it be the municipal state, the county state, the state, or the federal state. People will vote for whatever causes them to get the most padding in their pocket. Social Security, disability, education dollars, whatever the case might be. People want to have their pockets padded, and they want it to come from the state. And very often they forget, or they don't care, that that's not coming from the coffers of these invisible, out there amorphous, abstract coffers of the state. It's coming out of the pockets of people. It's coming from your neighbor. And sometimes it's coming from your neighbor who's right next door, and sometimes it's coming from your neighbor a city or a county over, or maybe it's another state. But they always cherish and relish the padding of their pocket at the expense of their neighbor. And de Tocqueville said this in his book Democracy in America, which was a long dissertation on. And keep in mind, the United States of America, the Republic of the United States of America, is not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic, a representative republic. But we wrongfully oftentimes refer to it as democracy. We talk about the democratic process here in the U.S. But in Democracy in America, de Tocqueville, and I'm going to paraphrase, and I don't know which part of the book it came from. Maybe it was just a random quote that he made. And here's the paraphrase: that when the people of the United States realize that they can vote for themselves from the largesse of the treasury, they will have lost the republic. when the people of America realize that they have lost or that they can vote for themselves from the largesse of the treasury, they will have lost the republic. That was in the late 17, early 1800s, folks. A time in memoriam, time out of sight, time out of mind for many people. Many of you who will watch this will have the same thing. But it has become this practice. You give me and I will vote for you. You do for me. You do something. You promise to give to me something that I don't want to have to go out and get myself, and I will vote for you as long as you take care of me, keep me safe, keep me comfortable, keep me prosperous, right? And that's the reality of where we are in the US today. That's why big major metropolitan urban areas always, for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, even in red states, swing blue. You look at a map of Minnesota and there are 4 dots of blue in the state of Minnesota and all the other counties go red. Why? Because as a show host that I like here in Minnesota says, the closer you get to the tallest buildings in the United States, the more left-wing the politics get and the more people give away. And I'm paraphrasing him as well. So what's that have to do with this topic and who is Mark? Well, we're going to take a look right now. Make sure I got this first one set up. So this is Mark Thine, and I don't know if you guys can see this. So let me see here. I'll put the picture in picture. But I don't know if you guys can see this. And I'm going to read it to you for those that are maybe not watching but are listening. And trust me, I understand how much easier it is to listen to me than it is to look at my face. As I told my guest yesterday, Brian O'Leary, we both have faces for radio. So here's what Mark, Olmsted County Commissioner for District 7, said. I am the county commissioner appointed to the DMC board. And this is there again, the Olmsted County. I'm the county commissioner appointed to the DMC board. DMC is Destination Medical Center. For those of you that don't know, Rochester, Minnesota is home of the Mayo Clinic system. It is the home and headquarters of Mayo Clinic. Mother Mayo, as it's affectionately and sometimes euphemistically and sometimes out of anger referred to by many of the people who live in the area. A lot of people work at Mayo. Even more people hate Mayo. It is not what everybody thinks it is. It is a left-wing propaganda hub. And people keep working there because the money's too good. So I'll start again. I'm the county commissioner appointed to the Destination Medical Center board. Yesterday, the DMC board approved allocating $10 million towards Soldiers Field Pool. That's a public pool in the city of Rochester, and associated recreation facilities. Between that and federal allocations, local residents are getting $22.5 million worth of improvements for $7 million in local taxes. A very good deal for local taxpayers. Now, I want to point out once again, a board that's set up to make Rochester, Minnesota friendly to Mayo Clinic, to cater to the Mayo Clinic system. And people can say, well, TC, what's your beef with that? Mayo Clinic is the driving force of Rochester, Minnesota. Without Mayo Clinic, Rochester would shrivel up and die. You know what? That might be true. And I'm not knocking the people that work at Mayo. But this is what crony capitalism looks like, right? Do people not understand? Crony capitalism is when a private entity makes demands on the local state, whether it be, once again, the municipal state, the county state, or the state, or even the federal state, makes demands on the state to do X, Y, and Z to improve our standing in the community so that we can make more and more and more and more and more and more and more money, all while claiming to be at a benefit for the people. So Mayo has a for-profit and a nonprofit side. And so you may go to the nonprofit side, but they're still making millions. But much of that gets paid to the for-profit side through medical tests and treatments and all that other stuff. And it's way too convoluted to try and even explain. But it is the medical industrial complex in the United States, and the hub of it is in Rochester, Minnesota. So Destination Medical Center, that board was designed and set up to find ways to make Rochester a better home for the Mayo Clinic and her patients. Now, I want to go back, and I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but I'm going to highlight something here. Well, maybe not. I can't highlight on the way I have this set up. But I'm going to read this again. Yesterday, the DMC board approved allocating $10 million towards Soldiers Field Pool and associated recreation facilities. This is just one area in Rochester, Minnesota. $10 million. And then he goes on and brags between that and federal allocations. And let's be honest, what's a federal allocation? That's a federal state taking money from the people via income tax and allocating it to other entities. These local residents are getting $22.5 million worth of improvements for $7 million in local taxes. So what's Mark not telling us here? Right? This is, and I want you guys to keep in mind that I've had many conversations about Mark Thine with many people in the Rochester and Olmsted County area. And many of them have defended him. Oh, TC got to back off Mark. Mark is on our side. He's a conservative. He's a patriotic type. He's a guy that's going to watch out for us. And I'm telling you, with my interactions with Mark, if Mark is what represents conservatism in the Rochester, Minnesota area, y'all are screwed. Okay? Because Mark is a progressive, just not as progressive as Mayor Kim Norton. Okay? Fact. He's a prog. Mark is a prog. And he's a shill. He loves the power of being on the Olmsted County board, and he's going to say and do whatever he needs to do to keep his position because he's an elected servant of the people. Well, he's supposed to be. But he's sitting here bragging that the local people are only going to see an increase of $7 million in their local taxes, but they're going to get $22.5 million worth of improvements. Now, is this some sort of weird loaves and fishes miracle that Mark is pulling off here? That the DMC board is like some sort of Jesus figure when it comes to finances for DMC, and they're somehow going to turn $7 million into $22.5 million? No, we already know that the rest of that is being made up through other allocations, much of it coming from the federal state. This is why this concerns all of you. This is why it concerns everybody in the United States. This is why it concerns everybody in the state of Minnesota. Your money is being forcibly stripped from you by the state. And let's be honest, that's what it is. Taxes are forcibly taken from you. Now, they may not be coming to your house with a firearm and saying you are going to pay us like some sort of racketeering mob boss sending out his goon squad to come and take money from a business owner saying, well, it would sure be a bad thing if something were to happen to this business because you didn't have the right protection. But that's what's happening. It's a mob setup. It's protection. It's protection money. You will pay these taxes, or we will send armed thugs to your house carrying badges and guns under the auspices of the authority of the state at all of her levels. And if you don't pay, we're going to haul you off. We're going to kidnap you, put you in torture cuffs, and throw you in a rape cage until you've paid your debt to society. Precisely. Commonwealth says taxes are the prices you pay to stay out of prison. Right. Precisely. And who imprisons you? Right? So Rochester, Minnesota, the taxpayers of Rochester, Minnesota are not getting $22.5 million for only $7 million. That's what Mark's putting the spin on it as. Mark's trying to spin it to say, look, we're only going to jack up your costs only $7 million more. No, you're paying $22.5 million. It's not just coming out of Rochester. It's coming from all over the United States. So some guy in South Carolina who's just up into that middle class working tax bracket, his money from way down there in South Carolina or Florida or Hawaii or California or Texas or Iowa or whatever, because he's not getting a refund or he's not getting all of what he paid in back. His money is being forcibly stripped from him, and if he refuses to pay it, he'll go to prison. So he pays it to stay out of prison, goes into some coffer somewhere else, and then these high and holy potentates now take that money and redistribute it clear across the country to somebody else for you to have a freaking swimming pool and some basketball courts and, oh, by the way, a golf course. Mark, who's saving here? This isn't an investment. It's theft. Mark, it's theft. And you're trying to paint this like you've just done a favor to the people of Rochester, Minnesota and Olmsted County. You've done them a favor because they're only going to have to pay $7 million in local taxes to get $22.5 million worth of improvements. No, that's not how this works. Mark, you're a moron. Mark Thine, you're a moron. And everybody who sees this and applauds is a moron too. That's taxpayer dollars. Those are dollars coming from people who live all over the United States, going to Rochester, Minnesota. And let's be honest, even the poor people in Rochester, Minnesota have it better off than a lot of the wealth or middle class people in other states, so that they can have some improvements made to their swimming pool and the Soldiers Field associated recreation facilities. You know, a walking trail and a golf course. Now, why in the world would the DMC board want those improvements made? They're trying to attract people to come to Rochester, not just to work, but to get care from Mayo Clinic. And what they're not telling you is they treat the lower class people of Rochester like dirt. They've taken away so much of the affordable housing in Rochester. They have tore down areas that were, I'm going to be honest, were run down and ramshackle. But a lot of people are being forced out of Rochester. And these are people who are used to living in the cities. And they're now being forced into smaller towns, smaller communities. And I welcome them. I don't care what their income level is, and I don't care what their ethnicity is. I don't care their religious perspective. I welcome anybody into my town. But when they feel like they have no choice but to flee Rochester, Minnesota, because they don't have a place to live, or the places they could afford to live, and they're comfortable living in these more urban metro type areas. And Rochester is the world's smallest large city. It's the country's smallest large city. I mean, it's the third largest metro area in the state of Minnesota. These people are feeling forced out. They don't know. They don't know where to go. Many of them have fled places like Chicago, Illinois, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Many of them have fled places like Minneapolis, Minnesota, and St. Paul, Minnesota, the Twin Cities area. Have come from other places to get away from that. And now they can't afford to live there, or the places they can afford have been forced away. But Mark's bragging because we're going to upgrade our swimming pool. $22.5 million of improvements for $7 million. So not only are you going to continue to pay an exorbitant amount of taxes in Rochester, Minnesota, and in Olmsted County, we're going to take it from other people so that you can have a freaking swimming pool. Now, I want constitutionally, I want every person on the Olmsted County Board and the Rochester City Council, I want every single one of you morons to explain to me where in the Constitution of the United States you are supposed to provide swimming pools and golf courses. I'll wait. I'll wait. Rochester, Minnesota. I'll wait, DMC Board. You unaccountable and unelected bureaucrats, as one of the viewers has said, but you're unaccountable. We didn't like, and I work in the Rochester area. So yeah, this does impact me. But even if I didn't work in the Rochester area, this impacts every single one of you. Every single one of you. It impacts Sarah in Owatonna. It impacts KD in the Rochester area. It impacts Commonwealth down in Kentucky. It impacts my friends in Florida, Dana and her family. It impacts my friends in Iowa and everywhere else. It impacts all of you. It's your money being forcibly stripped from you and sent to Rochester, Minnesota to pad the pockets of the Mayo Clinic, a supposedly private entity. And boy, they'll tell you that all the time. We are a private entity. We can control what happens here all we want. Now, an individual who made me aware of this did attempt to interact with Mark, and Mark just proved himself to be the prog shill that he is. This is, once again, this is the guy who's supposed to be the conservative, the small government type. This is not small government, folks. Maybe it's not as big government as everybody else would like to go, but this isn't small government. Bragging about $22.5 million in improvements for only $7 million in local taxes does not make you small government. It makes you a moron, because it shows a complete cognitive disconnect, a cognitive dissonance between what the reality is. That $22.5 million worth of improvements is coming out of somebody's pocket. And when the state at any other level is doing it, it's coming out of the pockets of the taxpayers. That's not the state's money. That's my money that's doing that. Rochester has a massive homeless problem right now. A massive homeless problem. Not as big as the Twin Cities, but per capita, we have a massive homeless problem. Now, I don't believe that we should be spending taxpayer dollars to forcibly house the unhoused. But imagine what we could do, what Rochester, Minnesota, what Olmsted County could do for $7 million. How many people could have a place to live for $7 million? How many? Nope, but we're going to get $22.5 million worth of improvements to the Soldiers Field complex because people have to have a swimming pool. It's just not right if they don't have a swimming pool. It's bread and circus is what it is. Keep them occupied. Make the community look nice so people want to come to Rochester. Now, I would challenge all of you to go to Commissioner Thines' Commissioner Facebook page, not his personal page. Go to Commissioner Thines. Go to his page on Facebook. Send him an email, whatever the case might be, and demand an answer. Demand that he explain where that money comes from. You guys need to inundate him. I don't care where you're from. You need to inundate him with an explanation for how taxes work. And don't let him get away with, well, it's an investment. It's not an investment. The state doesn't invest crap in anything, okay? The state does not invest in anything at all. It takes from me and then uses that money to pad its own pockets or to purchase the support of other people by giving them something that they wouldn't have had if it wasn't for the fact that they were taking that from me or you or your neighbor or your neighbor's neighbor or generations of children down the road. What's the point of a swimming pool in the Arctic in Minnesota? It's going to freeze. Like, okay, listen, I know we have cold weather, but we do have two seasons in Minnesota. We have winter and mosquito season. And the mosquitoes have to have a place to breed, i.e., swimming pools. Yeah, I said it. Wouldn't want mosquitoes to suffer. Now, this next one's going to be a little bit. Some of you might get irritated with me on this one, but I'm going to show it anyway. And for those of you that are back the blue at all costs, what I'm about to show you is, well, as I said in the description of the video, is public servants behave poorly, and sometimes it's because they're bad actors, and sometimes it's just they're low IQ, low functioning individuals. I want you guys to determine for yourself what both of these cases are. Both of the situations that I'm showing you, the one with Commissioner Thine here and what I'm about to show you, what is the purpose of this? Now, I'm going to put this image up, and I'm going to be quiet for just a couple of minutes, and I'm going to let you guys look at it because I want you to really think about it. The image that I'm about to share with you is from the Southeast Minnesota Violent Crime Task Force. It's made up of law enforcement entities from all over the southeast quadrant of the state of Minnesota. Rochester and Olmsted County, Winona County, Houston County, Fillmore County, Mower County, Freeborn County, I think Dodge County, Steele County. I think they all might be in there. But it's basically what they've all gotten together to done is they've put together kind of a ERU, emergency response unit teams. They do investigations. And they go out. They look for drug trafficking, sex crimes, sex trafficking, human trafficking, all of that, and they work together in conjunction with one another to take down these bad actors. Now, violent crime should be stopped, and I put violent crime in the category of violent crime. I will include human and sex trafficking. That's forcible rape. It's violence. And as a person who is a non-aggressionist, I do not believe that in doing violence. That's why I believe DUIs should be even more stringently enforced. Because DUIs are violence. It's the potential for violence. Now, so am I against the Southeast Minnesota Violent Crimes Task Force? I wouldn't say I'm against it. I would tell you that by and large, most task force and investigatory organizations within law enforcement are lazy. What they do in almost every case across the United States is they rely on snitches. So they arrest some small-time drug dealer who's maybe selling weed for personal use to people. They arrest them and they say, "Hey, if you flip on your supplier, we'll let you off with no charges or a slap on the wrist. No felonies, no nothing. We'll let you out." Now, especially in the case of marijuana, it should not be illegal. I don't think it should be legal. I think it should be decriminalized. I don't think there should be any way the state has its grubby hands on weed at all. Marijuana should not be illegal and it should not be legal. It should be decriminalized. We should take our hands off of it. We need the state out of the business. But that being what it is, Minnesota is working on legalizing it right now. And there again, the left wants to legalize it because the left wants to get the money for it, by the way. Let's just be honest. They want that. They want their grubby hands on the tax dollars. But be that as it may, and by the way, there is a Republican member of the House or Senate that's very concerned for drug sniffing dogs in Minnesota. They're going to have to retire if we legalize marijuana because those dogs aren't going to have jobs anymore. Think about the money that we would save the taxpayers if we eliminated the canine program altogether in every law enforcement agency. How many millions of dollars would we save across the state of Minnesota if canines went bye-bye? And the reason I say that is the more research I do, the more I'm finding out that canines aren't as accurate as everybody says they are. I'm finding over and over and over again that canines can be trained to give false hits, intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. They want to please. Your dog wants to please you, and that dog does not know it's a police dog. That dog sees itself as an extension of his buddy, his handler. He doesn't know he's a police dog. He just wants to make his handler happy because the handler is the alpha male or the alpha female, and it just wants to make it happy. But be that as it may, now that I've set the premise for what the Southeast Minnesota Violent Crimes Task Force is, I want y'all to look at this. And I'm going to be quiet a little bit. Okay? I'm going to be quiet when you guys, and please, if you guys haven't shared this out yet, put this in every single group that you can because these conversations are incredibly important. All right? They are. Like it or not. Feel like I'm bashing the cops or not. Feel like I'm bashing the improvements of Rochester through the Destination Medical Center or not. I don't care. These are conversations that we should be having across the United States. Everywhere we go, we should be having these conversations everywhere we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'll wait, and I want you guys to put your reactions in the comments here. If you're in the live chat, put them here, and if you're watching, put them in on playback. Go ahead and put them in because this is going to absolutely floor you. I can see it already. Here we go. Give you a couple minutes to look this over and put your comments in. I feel like I should be playing the Jeopardy music right now. Okay, I'll stop. Are you looking at it real close? Get real close to your phone. Get real close to your desktop. Get real close to your iPad or your tablet, whatever it is. You see it? Are you looking? Are you paying attention? Maybe I can get it bigger here. Let me see. I don't know if I can blow it up. I don't know why. Anybody? Can you guys see it at all? So anyway, if for those of you that can't really see it all that well, what it is it's a image. It's a standard law enforcement badge. It says south across the top ribbon. It says Southeast Minnesota, and down below it says Violent Crime Enforcement Team. It's a task force, and then in the middle of the badge, there's a I don't know how else to tell you what it is, but it's a Nazi helmet on top of a skull. And screen left there is a marijuana plant, and screen right there's a dollar bill, and underneath is an AR platform of some sort. Okay, and then across the top in an arc across the top of the skull, starting just above the marijuana or plant over to the dollar signs. It says the Latin phrase con inuctis viribus. Now, I have to tell you that it's spelled wrong. Conuctis viribus is spelled wrong. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to see if I can I'll see if their image pops up where it's better, and I can. It's not coming up for me on anything. So anyway, the conuctus viribus is spelled wrong. It's supposed to have two I's in it. It's viribus, and they have spelled it virbus. Now, this should disturb you, folks. Violent Crime Enforcement Team has in their emblem a Nazi soldier's helmet on top of a skull. Now, I know why they've done that. They're trying to point out that they're going after violent gangs. And the gang symbol or the gang image they choose to use is that of an image that is predominantly associated with right-wing white supremacist organizations who allegedly love and adore. They love and adore the Nazi memorabilia, correct? We all know that. We hear about it all the time. It's force-fed to us that these people love the Nazis. Now, I don't know how true that is or how true it isn't, but these people, we're told, love and adore the Nazis. And then we have a firearm and we have a dollar sign. Now, if you don't know anything about violent crime, if you don't know anything about threat group, and that's what they refer to as gangs as, or threat groups. If you don't know anything about gangs, if you don't know anything about some of the violent, white supremacist gangs and organizations that are out there, you would see this and go, why in the world is a law enforcement team using Nazi memorabilia, Nazi imagery in their coat of arms, basically, in their seal, in their image? Why are they using this? Why would they put this up? And this image is captured from a screen in Stewartville, Minnesota, during a town hall meeting where Sheriff Kevin Torgerson introduced the detective, the investigator that's on this task force, that's on this enforcement team, who then put this image up, comfortably put it up. Why would you use that image? And then why would you put a dollar bill in your sign? And why on earth would you put a firearm in there? Those two things, as KD said, are tacitly not illegal. Firearms are not illegal, and money is not illegal, and marijuana is about to not be illegal in Minnesota, right? Oh, geez, because Minnesota was settled by Germans. Okay, that's a fair point, but that doesn't make every Minnesotan a member of the Nazi white supremacist movements, and that seem to be by their communication all over Southeast Minnesota. Like, I've yet, in almost 13 years in law enforcement, I met a lot of people who were part of white supremacist groups, but I also met a lot of people who were part of black supremacy groups. They chose that image for a reason. That's a virtue signal, for one. Two, a lot of people aren't going to understand that. They are not going to understand what that is. And my friend KD even said when he saw it, and he then shared it with other people, he goes, what in the hell are they doing? That looks, at the very least, it looks bad. And it is bad. That's horrible. It's a horrible look. but then to include a firearm and the dollar sign. And what do we know about law enforcement? Law enforcement loves civil asset forfeiture. If they can come up with any excuse at all, if they can come up with any kind of excuse, they will use civil asset forfeiture to take everything from you possible. That image right there communicates to you that their goal is a seizure of your money and your firearms. There's no way for you to deny that. It's a seizure. And by the way, if you also what they you can't really see in the image, and if anybody wants to see this, I will put the image up on a post in on my Twitter, at Robe Regiment on Twitter, and I will also put it up in a post on my YouTube page. They also use rounds of ammunition. It looks like they're supposed to mimic 5.56 or 2.23. They are sending to you a message that they see your money and your guns as theirs because you could be using it to do violence. And they're coming for it. Those are the three things that they're coming for: marijuana, guns, and money. That's the message that they're sending. And the only other violent criminals in the area are all white supremacy groups. Why does any of that imagery need to be on there? Why? It doesn't need to be on there. Who is the moron that commissioned that piece of art? And that's art. It's art. I mean, it's bad art, but that's what it is. Who's the moron in the Southeast Minnesota Violent Crimes Enforcement Team? Who's the moron that commissioned that? Who's the moron that said, here are the elements we want? And who are the morons that approved it? And who is the moron that said, yeah, let's use that image? That tells you everything you need to know about the law enforcement organizations in Southeast Minnesota, what they're going after. They want your guns and they want your money. And then, who's the proofreader? Who's the proofreader? OG, I love you, man. Some brilliant troll. Yes. I'm hoping. I did. Hopefully, like beyond hope, I was sitting there saying to myself, I hope that this was somebody who has a great sense of humor. But the problem is the low IQ people who approved it didn't catch it, and they didn't catch the misspelling of the Latin word or the Latin phrase that they put in there. Oh, no, by the way, that Latin phrase means with connected power or with united powers. It was a motto of Queen Mary. And it sounds so good, doesn't it? Right? It sounds so good. It sounds so compelling. Oh man, that's really good. Right? But what they're saying is we're united in our power to come for you. Now, here's why that should be disturbing to you, especially in the light of everything else that's happening here in the people's state of Marxisota. It should be disturbing to you because the people's state of Marxisota is now expanding their gun control laws, their firearms control laws. They're expanding their red flag laws and making it easier for agents of the state, family members, friends, mental health professionals to strip you of your firearms. Who do you think they're going to send to take your firearms from you? When that time comes, they're going to send, here in Southeast Minnesota in particular, and anywhere else that this is happening, whatever passes for your violent crimes enforcement team, that's who they're going to send. They're going to go to a judge. They're going to get the ex parte order from the judge. And ex parte means you're not having any say in this. You don't get to appear before the judge and make the argument before it happens, why it shouldn't happen. they're going to go and get that order, and then they're going to send out these people from the Southeast Minnesota Violent Crimes Enforcement Team to come get your firearms. They're relishing that. They're looking forward to it. And a very small handful of counties in the state of Minnesota have had their sheriffs come out and say, we're not going to take part in this. And they haven't really said we're not going to take part in it. What they're saying is we're opposing this. What the vast majority of sheriffs in Minnesota will do is once it becomes law, and it's going to become law, once it becomes law, they're going to comply. Because their funding comes from the county boards and from the state. So from the county, state, and the state. And they're going to send violent crimes enforcement teams to come to your house to take your firearms because somebody says that you're suicidal or somebody says that you're a danger to others or both, and therefore you shouldn't have your guns. And now they come, they treat your guns like criminals. They treat you like a criminal. You don't get your day in court. You may not get arrested unless you say, no, I'm not going to let you in. And then they'll use force to come in and take your guns. The people, the morons in the Southeast Minnesota Violent Crimes Enforcement Team who commissioned this and approved this, and all of their superiors who signed off on this, every single one of you sheriffs, every single one of you chiefs of police who signed off on this, you are all low IQ morons. You didn't proofread it, and you didn't even think about the imagery. Or you did. And you had no idea, one, that the words were spelled wrong, that the word was spelled wrong. And two, you see yourselves as warriors. And I'm going to tell you for a fact the vast majority of cops in the state of Minnesota see themselves as warriors. They think they're warriors. Some of them are former warriors. I'm going to put that back up one more time. I want you guys to look at this one more time. And then have your friends look at that when I put it up and have them share their thoughts and their feelings. I did that on purpose. Have them share their thoughts on what that communicates. They're coming for the guns, the ammo, the money, and the weed, and you violent white people. That's what they're communicating. Those are the dangers to Southeast Minnesota. The danger couldn't possibly be the people who approve this. The dangers couldn't possibly be the people who didn't know how to proofread it. Untis viribus. United in power, or with connected power. This demonstration of the first part of this, the first half of this, with a Olmsted County Commissioner who's appointed to be on the board of the Destination Medical Center, bragging about only $7 million in tax burden theft from the local taxpayers in Rochester and Olmsted County, but to the tune of $22.5 million in total coming from all these different levels: federal, state, county, state, municipal, state. $22.5 million in total. Bragging as if somehow he's saving these people this money as it's invested in their community to improve their swimming pools, to improve their golf course. When there is no duty, there's no constitutional obligation on the part of any state and at the state at any of her levels to provide any of those things. And then the badged enforcement, gun-wielding enforcement teams of the state commissioning, and approving an image like that and thinking it's fine because they think people are going to understand what the imagery means. And the problem is a lot of us do understand what the imagery means. A lot of us actually do understand the imagery. We do know that they're communicating a message. The problem is the message that they're communicating should be terrifying to you, because they're going to be okay coming and taking your guns from you as long as you can be labeled violent. They're going to be okay coming and take your money from you as long as you can be labeled violent. Now think back over the last couple of years with the FBI labeling dissident voices violent terrorists. And after this video comes up, I will be putting up a short video that's going to enforce what I'm saying, but I'm going to put it up as a relatively short video. The people, our state is out of control. The state at all of her levels is out of control. We do not stand a snowball's chance in Hades. We might stand a snowball's chance in Los Angeles right now, considering they've had, or in Southern California, where they had snow for the first time in 30 plus years. Well, not for the first time, but winter weather events that they haven't seen for 30 plus years. But we don't stand a snowball's chance in Hades when they're willing to broadcast what they're going to do. They're bragging about it. You have county commissioners bragging about $22.5 million in expenditures coming from all over the United States to improve a freaking swimming pool in Rochester, Minnesota. I'm sorry, Fine's a moron. He's not a conservative. He's definitely not small government. He's a shill for Mayo Clinic. He'll do whatever Mayo Clinic wants done. And if Mark Fine, the alleged conservative in Olmsted County, will do that, what the hell are all the other leftists in that going to do there? And then you've got the badged enforcement thugs of the Southeast Minnesota Violent Crimes Enforcement Team. Clearly have no IQ, or at least an IQ high enough to understand how bad that looks. They're morons. And I know a lot of them. They are morons. They are low IQ. They're very low IQ people. They're picked for their low IQ. It's one of the reasons why I couldn't stay in the career field anymore. Things just didn't sit with me. Oh, they'll tell you it was because I didn't follow orders. Untrue. But ultimately, a lot of the people in law enforcement, not all of them, because I know some that are very deep thinkers. How they stay in law enforcement, I don't know. Cognitive dissonance, I guess. But ultimately, they think their job is to enforce every law, whether that law is constitutional or not. And they think because they put on a badge and they put on a gun and they do it under the auspices of the state, it's okay. Somebody I like to listen to points out all the time, slavery and segregation used to be legal in the United States. Didn't make it right, didn't make it constitutional, but it was legal. And Rosa Parks got arrested for sitting on the front of the bus because it was illegal for her to sit there. Your elected and appointed servants haven't served you for a long time, but now they're just rubbing it in your face because they think you're stupid. And it's time we start calling them out for this garbage. So be looking for that video I told you about that's going to show you just how bad it's getting in this state, and just how bad the rhetoric is directed at the greater Minnesota area. I've got some libertarian friends who are watching. OG Snoop, libertarian friend. I think we're still friends, aren't we, OG? But we all know what's going on, and we're sick of it. The problem is no one around us wants to wake up. So maybe this video will help. So my friends, until next time, make sure you head over to my Subscribe Star, pick a level of support, or buy some merchandise from me, and so I can let Bob and Sue know that we're working on getting them a little bit of money to help absorb the cost of bringing their veteran son home so that he can recover after serving in an unlawful, immoral war that has ruined him and is breaking his family apart. Till next time, my friends, fight for your liberty. It is yours. Fight for your freedom. It belongs to you. Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at